So you've spent hundreds of hours in your favorite video game, but at some point the magic fades. You start to notice all the imperfections, the hitboxes in Dark Souls, the disbalance of the economy and strategy video games, or maybe you are raging about Path of Exile's endless grind that feels like homework. Then it hits you. I played so much, and I cracked the code. I know how to do better for me and for people like me. Maybe you start to think, I could have done better, so why not just start building your own game that fixes every single flaw. Your brain is on fire. I blend the best mechanics from all the games I know. The combat system from Dark Souls, the plot from The Last of Us, and of course ChatGPT powered NPCs. Genius, right? You fire up an Unreal Engine, call your first attack, make the first level. Wait a minute. The Avengers, there was a really cool glow of Thanos. My game needs the magic hand too, but now the entire plot revolves around the mystical artifact, except your game was built around the swords, not finger snaps. Sounds like an abandoned early access game, right? But this is how Devil May Cry was made. Every cinematic focuses on the magic hand. Players expected Nero's hand to shine in combat, and imagine the disappointment when they found out you mostly use a sword. This is the chaos of mismatched visions. Day by day, your project becomes less creation and more plugging the holes in a sinking boat. Your project turns into a diary, and every single new feature hammers a nail into your project's coffin. Imagine working on your game for a year, and your friend asks you, so what is this game about? But instead of a clear answer, a nervous monologue about the unique genre mashup where the Dark Souls meet Animal Crossing. You see their confusion, and it's just your friends. Now imagine an investor staring at you. The game over before it began. It is not laziness or the lack of focus. This is passion without discipline. People start with excitement to create, but soon they whisper, game dev is not for me. Today I'll tell you how to avoid that. My name is Victor. I've been in the game industry for 9 years. I've seen how games truly come together and how brilliant ideas can bury themselves. So you've decided to make your own game. You like puzzles, strategy games and action, and you want to mash up all your favorite games together. But let's step back for a moment. Every successful game has its target audience, because people are drawn to different genres or aesthetics. This audiences often overlaps. For example, card game players tend to like medieval aesthetics, and cyberpunk fans tend to like shooters and action games. Marketeers and designers study those connections. It's a whole field of study. You is also a part of a target audience. You consume different genre styles and narratives, but notice how you pull different game mechanics and stories from separate projects. There is a reason why those games are divided by distinct genres. Mixing styles, mechanics or aesthetics is really risky. Yet, you aim to combine elements from games that designers and managers have carefully tested and refined. The core problem? You haven't decided your exact goal. Haven't picked a genre, planning to mash everything together. Say you mix action and point-and-click adventure. Congratulations, you've driven away both audiences. Action fans get bored solving puzzles, and adventure fans can relax during intense combat sequences. Remember, if you create something for everyone, you will end up creating for no one. You need a plan, at least a basic one. First, your target audience. Genres they enjoy, preferred art styles, desired atmosphere. Next, research the demand for your chosen genre or art style. Say you decide on a platformer. As a developer, your competence lies in the level design and mechanics. But the narrative framework and aesthetic choices actually drive significant part of the market. For example, Ori and the Blind Forest versus Celeste. Both are platformers, but they target different people through their approach. Ori uses fairy tale forest aesthetics, and Celeste uses mental health struggles as its narrative foundation, attracting players interested in more personal, emotional storytelling with gameplay. If you haven't locked down the story, setting, or any elements you consider secondary, research their market demand. For Ori's case, you could study Miyazaki's film popularity. Even people not familiar with anime know his creations. Think of every non-core element in your game as an ingredient in a recipe. Maybe everyone is craving for something spicy right now, so your game stands out if it has something of this flavor. If you haven't researched the demand for your game's elements, its target audience and the player experience, then you have no idea about your final product. And then you spend years endlessly reworking everything. Eventually you abandon the project because you've created a monster that terrifies you. Imagine, you've been thinking about your game for so long, considering so many features, that you have forgotten your original concept. Or after several months, your perfect vision doesn't seem to be that great anymore? The reason? Your brain is a master of illusions. Ask yourself, how much do you trust your own memory? Are you sure that after playing a new game or seeing a cool movie, your ideal vision hasn't changed? In 1974, psychologist Elizabeth Loftus proved that human memory is not an archive, but a factory of false recollections. She made an experiment. She showed participants a car crash video and asked how fast did the cars go into each other. Those who heard smashed remembered broken glass, which didn't exist. They even reported speeds up to 40% higher than reality. Your brain does the same. Today you definitely remember playing your Silent Hill, a month later you are certain about Resident Evil, 6 months in you are cursing yourself. Did I really add a Ragnarok sword to my Resident Evil? Even Hideo Kojima documents everything. He writes down new ideas into a notebook before dragging them into projects. Hundreds of people create his games, so before giving them extra work, you need considered decisions. Freedom minus boundaries equals chaos. A development example. Once I spent a full cycle crafting lighting. I aimed for a sinister sunset, but at some point I loved the light rays so much that I started hunting references from another game with fancy volumetric lighting effects. Upon seeing the result, the art director said, "Man, I'd love to fish in this beauty." But what about the despair? It turned out that in my pursuit for a lush image, I drifted far from the original idea. Since documentation, I replaced the concept and made something that looked cool but not something needed. Your brain keeps swapping out ideas until you start documenting them. Improvisation versus plan. Sometimes you need to test ideas just to see if they function. Concepts could change a lot during the production. Here is a real story. Silent Hill. Capcom's director gave his assistant control of a new game, and this decision changed to different game series forever. The assistant first swapped the fixed camera for a dynamic one, but the prototype got scrapped. That didn't stop him from developing it into a totally different genre project. And believe it or not, that cancelled prototype became Devil May Cry. But try to stick closer to your original concept document. At minimum, it should include target audience, genre, style, setting, and the core gameplay loop. Imagine you are in the middle of the ocean. It doesn't matter where you go and how fast if you don't know your destination. A plan is your lighthouse and your safety net against the creative crises. Without a reference, you can neither stay on your course or accurately measure how far have you drifted. For example, before building a diving mechanic, you need certainty about having the bottom of the sea in your game at all. If you didn't consider that from the start, maybe you should have spent some time crafting something else, like the old GTA games did. Or in the art, the background always affects how you perceive the object in front of it. You might make hyper-detailed trees, but if you don't know the places for those trees, nobody would notice those details in a dense forest compared to a city square. Your result remains a shot in the dark. At this point, you need a plan. The point of planning is not in burying yourself in boring bureaucracy. A document sets boundaries for creativity, like Lego. You don't make each piece however you prefer from scratch. You build from standard bricks. These limits do not restrict your imagination. They force your brain to find clever solutions inside given constraints. With the rules clear, you can assemble almost everything. If you are an artist tasked creating something specific, you need a raw sketch showing the composition and lighting, alongside with a brief. Only then you can dive into details. If, instead of curated reference board, you have dozens of images in different color palettes, scales and contrasts, you will constantly feel that your artwork is too bright or too dark or something else, because you are trying to compare the incomparable. Once I had to pause my personal project for half of a year, and later when I returned to it, I had a bunch of ideas. I spent a couple of days fleshing them out. Then I checked my document and realized I could have used my old concepts and saved myself several evenings. How to plan. You don't need to create a 100-page manual. Start small. Make a 1-page concept. Define genre, setting, and the main game mechanic. And find other projects doing this before. Create a mood board. Even if your game is all about gameplay, you need to know exactly the feeling you aim to give to the player. For example, a sense of fear, as if someone is watching you, or a sense of necessity with lack of resources. Collect screenshots from the project that match your game's spirit. For instance, Deus Ex and Cyberpunk 2077 are both cyberpunk. But if your goal is gritty techno crash without glam, colorful neon signs are totally out. The core loop. Ask yourself, does my game absolutely need this to function? For Dark Souls it's combat, for the Hollow Knight it is exploration and platforming. MVP. First make a playable character capable of moving and jumping. One item One level, that's it. Now you can test and iterate. Clear answer to what is my game about. One paragraph in your document so you always remember the core. This is a dark platformer about surviving in an abandoned megacity, and the focus is on sense of loneliness and the physiological surviving mechanic. Milestones. Make sure that you know your tasks. Today I finish the player movement, tomorrow sketch out the level, and in a month a combat prototype. Read the plan, you won't spend time on questions like what should I do? Ideas do not need your project, they need paper. Open a notebook and document everything that comes to your mind. Pick the most important elements and only then open the engine. The rest of the ideas can remain for your next project. If you aim to see a real plan that developers used to create a successful game, follow the Discord link in the description. And thank you for watching.